Good evening and welcome commissioners, applicants, and interested parties to the March 6th, 2025 meeting of the Cohasset Conservation Commission. My name is Valerio Romano. I'm the chair of the commission and will be running tonight's meeting as we implement the Massachusetts Wetlands Protection Act, Chapter 260 of the Cohasset Bylaws governing wetlands protection, and Chapter 263 of the Cohasset Bylaws governing stormwater management. The Conservation Commission meeting is now in session and is being held on Zoom. If you have any questions for the commission, please type them in the Q&A section of the Zoom app. Please include your name and address to be recognized. When called, please limit your discussion to 3 minutes. Present this evening on behalf of the Conservation Commission is the town's conservation agent, Charlotte Pechtel. I will now take a roll call of the Conservation Commissioners. Please respond by repeating your name and saying present. Tom Bell.
Tom Bell, present.
Kathy Berrigan.
Kathy Berrigan, present.
Chris McIntyre.
Chris McIntyre, present.
And Valerio Romano, present. Tonight we have a quorum of 4 commissioners. Before we get started, in case anyone in the audience is here for them, NOI 2501 for 94 Black Horse Lane is continued to March 20th, and show cause for 39 Riverview Drive is continued to March 20th as well. Next, I'd like to request the indulgence of the commission and continue the approval of the minutes until the next meeting, as I don't know if we've all had a chance to review them. Is there any objection to that?
No.
Hearing none, we'll continue the approval or review and discussion of the previous minutes until the March 20th meeting. Thank you for your indulgence, everyone. Now on to our first public hearing. In accordance with Mass General Laws, Chapter 131, Section 40, the Cohasset Wetlands Bylaw, and the Cohasset Stormwater Bylaw, the Cohasset Conservation Commission is holding a public hearing now, Thursday, March 6, 2025, to begin at approximately 6:30 p.m. via remote participation on Zoom for a request for determination of applicability 2504 to install a septic tank, pump chamber, and distribution box and geomat flat system at 17 Hillside Drive for Zach Lombardi. The public has been invited to offer input by emailing cpechtel@cohassetma.gov. Details for access to the Zoom platform are on the Conservation Commission agenda online at cohassetma.org in the meetings hearing notices section. This hearing is now open. Charlotte, is anyone from the applicant team available? Anyone to promote?
Yes, we have Zach Lombardi, the applicant, and Rick Grady from Grady Consulting, LLC. Hi, guys.
Hello.
Hi, folks.
Hello, everybody.
Well, thank you. Rick Grady from Grady Consulting, and Zach here with me as well. This is a property that Zach has purchased at 17 Hillside Drive. There's an existing home on the property. We have actually, can I share my screen? I should have asked you that before. I'm pointing to my screen and realized I'm not sharing it. There we go. So there's an existing home on this property at 17 Hillside Drive. Home centered in the property here in the middle. I will zoom in here for you a little bit. We have a bordering vegetated wetland to the rear of the property. Wetland flags 1 through 8, flagged by John Zimmer from South River Environmental. The existing system for the property is in the front yard as well. We've done test holes and designed a system which is going to consist of a 1,500-gallon septic tank, 1,500-gallon pump chamber, and then pump that effluent up to a distribution box in the geomat flat system. We're keeping that towards the street as far from the wetland as practical. The existing front yard is treed. I'm sorry, there's no trees, it's all grass. Is what I had meant to say. So you can see that in the aerial here that we have a yard where we don't need to remove any trees to do this system. So that's what I had intended to tell you. We have erosion control proposed so that we'll separate any construction activities from the wetland to minimize or mitigate any erosion or sedimentation of the wetland. Existing driveway is on the right-hand side as you're facing the home. That'll be the primary access for construction from the driveway and from the street. And I'd be glad to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you very much, Mr. Grady. Commissioner Bell, do you have any questions?
What was the system like before it failed?
Yeah, so if I zoom in a little tighter, I can show you, it is a raised ranch style home, and the plumbing comes out below the slab. So in this little dashed line here underneath, I can take and throw a quick little highlight on there with a line here. The existing septic tank was right about in here, and that went out to a leaching field that was basically right about in here. So we're removing a portion of the existing leaching field to install the new leaching system. I suspect that it is I think it was from the 1970s, so it has lasted for quite a while. I suspect it's probably a little bit too close to groundwater. And this will elevate it above groundwater in accordance with Title V, stay roughly in the same area as the existing system.
So you do have sufficient separation. I'm looking here, I see one of your test pits. Did you put more than one in?
No, the Board of Health let us do one test pit on this, right in this area here. The reason being was there wasn't really any place else that we could dig without digging into the existing system. And it was consistent with other soils testing that's been done in the area.
Can you then zoom into your test pit log?
Oh, sure. I'd have to zoom out first to find it. There we go. So we had about 5.5 feet of fill material. There was about 12 inches of a sandy loam. There was down to 66 inches for a loamy sand. Looked like it actually got imported for the septic system installation way back when. And then we had a sandy loam class 2 soil for the parent material down below for the existing natural soil.
And your estimated water table is
4 feet.
4 feet below the base of the sandy loam?
Below the ground surface.
Below the ground surface?
Yeah.
I'm confused. The numbers on the right-hand side are the depth
Elevations.
correct?
These are the elevations on the right-hand side. So
They're
the
elevations. Oh, okay,
yeah, so the ground elevation was 92.97,
okay.
and then these are the elevations below ground here.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Commissioner Berrigan,
No questions at the moment.
Commissioner McIntyre,
No questions.
so if we were to issue a negative, would this be a -2, Charlotte?
I think there's no borderland subject to flooding, so I think it's only work within the buffer zone. So that would be -3 and -6. And Rick, we're not in riverfront here, right? I don't think so, but
Correct, we are not.
Okay.
Yeah, simply outer portion of the buffer zone. I didn't really even point out the 100-foot
Oh, yeah.
buffer, but we're only slightly into the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, I don't have any further questions. I mean, we're essentially replacing septic where one goes, and the new system is actually sort of less impactful than the existing system, it looks like, from the new design. So I don't have anything further. I don't know if any other commissioners do. If not, I would Charlotte, is there anything else that we're waiting on, or any particular conditions that we should be considering?
Chris, did you have any questions?
I asked Chris, didn't I?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, you did.
Oh, okay.
good.
Yeah, and my only question, Rick, was has Board of Health approved this yet?
We're meeting with them next week.
Yeah.
They seem satisfied with the design as well.
And they don't need any variances here, so.
Yeah, we're not within the 50. I don't have an objection. I would unless any other commissioners have any other questions, I would entertain a motion. I will make a motion to issue a negative determination on request for determination of applicability 2504 to as per the plans with -3 and -6 determination.
Tom Bell, second.
Let's quickly run through a roll call vote. Commissioner Bell,
Tom Bell, aye.
Commissioner Berrigan,
Kathy Berrigan, aye.
Commissioner McIntyre,
Chris McIntyre, aye.
and Valerio Romano, aye. That vote passes unanimously 4-0. The public hearing is closed. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Okay.
Yeah, you too.
Welcome.
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
All right, so next up, 1 second, let me just get to my notes. Next, we have a continued permit status discussion from February 27th, 2025 for NOI 21-29, which has gotten DEP Southeast file number 013-352 at 125 Doane Street. This hearing is now resumed. I know that Mr. Ashton submitted a planting plan, and I really appreciate that. I had a chance to take a look at it. Charlotte, any updates? Should we be promoting anybody from the applicant team?
Sorry, Cameron, wrong hearing.
Not
So-
applicant, sorry.
Yep,
the,
sorry. And Adam and Connor, so we have Will, the property owner, Will Ashton, and Victoria, the property owners. And then Connor and Adam, can you guys introduce yourself for the record, please?
I'm
sorry.
Good afternoon.
Mr. Mullen.
Oh, good afternoon. This is Connor Mullen, KP Law Town Council. Good evening, Mr. Chair and Commissioners. Sorry, Adam.
Oh, no, thank you. And good evening, everyone. My name is Adam Brodsky, I'm a local
Excuse me.
environmental and land use lawyer representing William and Victoria Ashton. And I've been asked to participate this evening just to assist in keeping the conversation focused. I should note that the Ashtons have also retained Brad Holmes, a professional wetland scientist with ECR, but unfortunately Brad was not available this evening.
Great.
So I have a few comments just to make sure that I understand the purpose this evening. My understanding is that this meeting is to review the mitigation plan that was required by the amended order of conditions issued on October 22, 24 for the additional agricultural activities, which were located within, amongst other places, within a portion of the 50-foot buffer zone at 125 Doane Street. And that was required, I believe, by special condition number 56. And I'm just going to read it really quickly. The applicant shall work with the agent to draft and finalize a planting plan composed of native trees and or shrubs and perennials selected from the commission's approved planting list somewhere within the buffer zone on the property. And Mr. Ashton has submitted a mitigation plan which satisfies special condition number 56, which apparently was not supposed to be required by or approved by the commission, but we have obviously no issue with the commission reviewing it. So I just wanted to make sure that I understand the mission this night. And you'll please correct me if I'm mistaken.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate Mr. Brodsky, your effort to keep us focused. So I think that for the time being, we should probably proceed with the discussion of the mitigation / planting plan. There was some confusion as to, and I don't want to place any fault or blame as to whether the information that was initially relied on for the amended order of conditions was in fact accurate. And maybe it was a misunderstanding of the commission. I know at some point, and so I don't want to belabor that unless we have to, because that might allow things to devolve. I think, but let's take this. But just suffice it to say, Mr. Brodsky, that things may not be quite as simple as you stated, because there was a site visit and the agent and myself, the chair, visited the property and we had some further discussions. But before we allow this conversation to devolve or get off track, we may be in such a great position now that it was a wasted visit for you, Mr. Brodsky, even though we love having you on the hearing, and you too, Mr. Mullen. So before we, spin off into a further discussion of some of the other things that may have occurred, why don't we listen to maybe Mr. Ashton, or maybe it's you, Adam, that are presenting it. Will, do you want to, one of you, do you want to just sort of run through what the planting plan is, and then maybe we can hear from the commissioners and see what their thoughts are?
Definitely, yeah, I can share the screen, and Victoria's here too. She's the actual expert that is.
Hi, Victoria.
So glad we could do this a little earlier. I'll share
Yeah.
my screen. Maybe. Here we go. Okay. Can everyone see that?
Mhm.
Okay, great. So I'll just start with a summary up here at the top left. The plan generally has 100 square feet of native shrubs and trees, 900 square feet of flowering annuals and perennials. We reduced the lawn by over 1,100 square feet and reduced impervious by 655 with this updated plan. We have the list there of all the native plantings that are going in, which are identified to the right over here, and the pollinator habitats that are established in this area, which didn't exist before because this was strictly trees and no understory are listed there as well. Hummingbird, butterfly, and bee. So you can see here we labeled the types of flowers that are in the flower beds. And these colors are the 900 square feet of annuals and perennials. And then the 3 types of shrubs are holly. Holly is shrub or tree, whatever you want to call it, are around here between the agricultural area and the wetland. So that's kind of the summary, and I can leave it to questions if you want.
Thanks, Will. I appreciate it. Commissioner Bell.
I have no no questions or comments at the moment.
Thanks, Tom. Commissioner Berrigan.
I also don't have any comments at the moment.
Commissioner McIntyre.
So I guess my only question is, the contention was with regard to trees. So what is our, where are we at in terms of, even if we're counting, shrubs, are we at, even 1-to-1, or that?
So there
Sorry.
were,
I think we're at night. Oh, sorry, Will. Go ahead, please.
if I understand the question correctly, it's what was cut down versus what is being planted now, the ratio. So it was
Yeah.
around, I can get the exact number. I think it was around 1,000 square feet of trees that were cut. And we're putting back in about 2,400 square feet. 1,500 shrubs and trees, 900 flowers.
So what I remember at the last year, you mentioned 900 sort of flowers or bushes. You said that's actually the Cosmos native wildflower mix, peonies and roses. That's what you were referring to at the last one.
Yep, everything in red is that 900 square feet.
Yep.
And then the shrubs are these bubble shapes that meant to represent a shrub all around the back.
And then so if we're calling them shrubs or trees or whatever, you're at 19, and I don't want to, make a stickler for consistency where 20 was, because there was 8, wasn't it 8 within the 50 that came out, and then 4 with between the 50 and the 100. So the 8 would constitute 16 plus 4 would equal 20. We're at 19. I'm not going to be the one to make this. Yep, go ahead. Sorry, Will.
I think I see what your point is, but I think that we've followed the appropriate spacing of these plants for this area, which was another point that Brad brought up in his initial thought, was that if you put trees back here, you couldn't even get that many in that area. So the shrubs that we have spaced now are, 5 or 2 feet, depending on what they are. So I don't think you could fit more over there if you wanted to.
Did Brad have input on this plan that we're looking at?
He agreed with us that understory plantings are an improvement at the edge of a forest. Yeah.
An improvement over the trees that were taken down?
Yes.
So he chimed in on this specific plan that we're looking at?
Yes.
Yes. He had
Okay.
I only Charlotte just mentioned this on Monday, so I only talked to Brad on Tuesday. So he's only had a day or two to look at it, but
Yeah.
that was his initial thought.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, just to clarify, under the amended plan, it was 1,300 square feet of clearing for this area. So the total, it looks like on the plan, is 1,500 square feet of native shrubs and trees for the 1,300 square feet of vegetation overall that was removed,
if
just in terms of
I-
area.
I understand that's what the plan says, Charlotte, but if we're gonna get specific on areas that were taken away, the majority of that space behind the 7 trees that were removed had no plants whatsoever. So if
No,
you wanna
I know,
go
I'm
back-
saying in terms of the what was
Square
listed
footage.
specifically on the plans. So
So
you're.
we're
Yeah.
above what was there.
Yeah, yes.
We keep referring to, in here to shrubs and trees. Are there any trees involved here?
That's the debate on the holly, whether you count it as a shrub or a tree. The Ilex opaca.
It is listed as a tree in our lists. The Salix discolor pussy willow species, for whatever reason, even though it's a native species to Massachusetts, is not on our list, but we have a similar species, Salix nigra, the black willow, that's listed as a tree on one of our lists. So yeah, at least according to our, either one of our lists, for a similar species for the pussy willow and for American holly, we list them as trees.
That would leave then the blueberry just as a shrub. So then we have 2
Yeah.
trees and 1 shrub.
And I think
So you-
I was just
you'll-
counting the numbers, Victoria, but I counted, and please correct me if I'm wrong, I counted 5 American hollies and 14 pussy willows, so 19 trees, and then I counted 5 blueberry shrubs. Please correct me if I'm wrong, but that's what I counted on the plans.
Yeah, and that was based on the spacing requirements for the
Yeah.
plants at their, full-grown spacing needs. And so that's how because then we tried to bunch
Mhm.
them according to how they like to grow.
That's why you see the hollies closest to the edge of the remaining, the bigger trees behind us, the hollies are closest to them.
Are the pussy willow? Oh, sorry, Commissioner Bell, you weren't finished.
Well, a pussy willow is a tree.
That's, yep.
According to the list.
How tall do they get?
Well, so I don't know the answer to that question, but we can't, because of the use of this space, we can't allow anything to get too tall because the point of taking the trees down was to eliminate the shade.
Yes, I understand that.
And to keep in mind that this is supposed to be the understory, right? The habitat within the understory. So we
Yeah.
were never trying to achieve 20-foot heights, because there is benefit to the wildlife that inhabit this area, as well as the buffer for the wetlands, where this is beneficial to them.
Yeah, some of that research that we looked up showed that adding understory plantings that have shallower roots next to forests that are pine and oak and not much else benefits the remaining trees that are around it more than if there were trees there.
So according to this logic, we should cut all the trees in our buffer zones and
Nope,
plant.
not at all.
So
This is specific to a
Mr. Ashton,
forested area.
let me respond to Mr. Bell.
Sure.
I just remind the commission that you don't have a regulation which requires the replacement of trees. And if you wish to regulate trees as opposed to wetlands and activities in buffer zones, to wetlands, I'd suggest that you revisit your regulations. Because this is a mitigation for encroachment into a buffer zone to wetlands. So the correct question that should be asked is what's the function of this particular buffer zone to that wetland, and whether this mitigation plan protects and enhances the functions of that wetland. Not whether you should replace trees or replace trees at some ratio that's not even in your regulations. And that's the problem. So I just want to keep everything focused.
Thanks, Adam.
So I'm not convinced that this is an improvement. That this is actually better than what was there.
Yeah, I think we need to just focus. I think it's in the benefit of Will to focus on the mitigation as we would rather than setting a precedent that we can improve the buffer zone by with, efforts like this where we removed native plants and are putting in, shrubs and planting beds. I don't think that's the path forward. I think we just want to agree on the mitigation plan. Because without an ecologist or a wetland scientist to say, I just I looked through the sources, the references to it, and there were bits in there, but it doesn't point to like it's not. I just don't agree that it's an improvement to a native natural habitat. Personally,
It's adding a pollinator habitat that didn't exist before. How could it not be?
And I also want to point out the 3 animals listed, specifically the ruby-throated hummingbird, the cardinal blue butterfly, the rusty patch bumblebee are endangered pollinators. And so when we look at what we're trying to establish in terms of a limited resource habitat for these specific entities, this is where they like to live. So I want to offer that too, to say that what was there before, those tall trees did not offer that type of environment that would benefit these endangered species. So I see that as a benefit. I see that as an improvement and creating a more diverse ecosystem for more diverse habitats.
That's what a lot of the research too, not just animal diversity, but plant biodiversity improves all the plants around it. So
because if you think about a crop,
those
right?
species are not wetland species though, and
what aren't wetland species?
The 3 species that you listed, the
They are.
butterfly,
They were on our list, the list that we picked from.
The wetlands regulation.
the animals,
on-
the species that you're referencing, the butterfly, the hummingbird, like those habitats can be generated and produced elsewhere.
So wait, let me,
That's
Hey, just 1 second. Let's make sure that we give everybody, respectfully the time to sort of finish their thought.
Yeah.
And not speak over each other, because that's how it will devolve. And I think,
what Chris is saying is
my
not true.
point. What my point is that creating pollinator habitats for hummingbirds and butterflies in the buffer zone is not a precedent that we're willing to set, and
Chris.
none of us believe that. Excuse me. Well, let me finish, please. May I? We're not willing to say that cutting down trees in a native natural 50-foot buffer zone to replace with pollinator species and shrubs is an improvement. We're not willing to do that. At least I'm not, and in my understanding from the rest of the commission is that we're not. So we're looking at this as a mitigation, and we're talking about that, but we're not.
Let me talk.
I'm not buying that it's an improvement to the 50-foot buffer.
So Bert, are you good?
Yes, thank
I
you.
want to point out that one of the protected interests of the Cohasset wetland regulation is habitat specifically for these species. So creating habitat is an interest of the regulation, the bylaw, and the act. So I don't see how you can just say you don't like pollinator habitats when that's what the regulation says.
Can I speak?
Go ahead. And Victoria wanted to add something too.
And I pointed that out specific, so Will could then back that up about the Cohasset specific regulations of the protected interests. But that's not the only reason and the only benefit. It's not just about the pollinators. And understanding what this area, right? We're talking about just within the buffer zone, the purpose is filtration, right? Downstream to the wetlands. These provide filtration. Same as trees. They do the same thing. But you're now creating a more complex, diverse ecosystem. In doing so, and providing the same benefit, which is its intended purpose, filtration.
Right, that was that whole, I have it here if anybody wants to look it up, but the whole analysis of all the protected interests that are improved by this project.
Commissioner Bell?
Yeah, are we talking about conservation here or are we talking about engineering?
What do you mean? What engineering?
You're engineering a new ecosystem here.
Which is,
And where the ability to preserve what was already there is now gone. Which was, I believe, in violation of the original notice of intent and order of
No,
conditions.
so Mr. Bell, again.
Wait, Mr. Brodsky,
mistaken.
hey,
The word-
Adam, wait, Adam, just let Tom finish and then, you know, otherwise it's just, we're not gonna get anywhere. So just
Just
let
gonna let
everybody-
him lie.
Mr. Ashby,
Excuse me?
we're gonna try, everyone's gonna try and be civil this evening, including
Yeah,
our
please.
team.
Let's not devolve. Let Tom finish and then let, you know, everybody's gonna get a chance to speak. That's why we put this towards the top of the agenda so that we can really hash through it and we're not rushed at the very last second at 11:59 and Will doesn't feel like he's gotten to explain, you know, and his family's gotten to explain to us, you know, what, you know, exactly what's going on. So Tom, do you want to finish? I'm sorry.
Yeah, I have a question for Mr. Ashton. Did you just accuse me of being a liar?
Like I
So-
said, like everyone said, I don't think that's important. We should just move on.
Well, it's important to me.
I think what he was-
I believe you just called me a liar.
he was trying to say that what you were saying is not
Ms.
accurate. It's not an accurate statement of fact. And so when we start talking like that in hyperbole, it creates a place where people start believing that hyperbole, and then we get into a situation where we're spinning in circles and we no longer have the source of truth. So what you were saying was not accurate.
I asked a question. I didn't
didn't-
make a statement. I
Okay,
asked, are we
continue.
talking, I asked whether we're talking about conservation or engineering.
That wasn't what you were talking about. You were saying that we stepped outside and were in violation. That's what you started saying, and that's not accurate.
Chair Romano, if I might, it's Adam Brodsky, the limit of clearing that was approved under the amended order of conditions is shown on the plan. And the work was performed consistent with the plan. I think there's a misunderstanding whether there has been a violation of that order of conditions. And we believe that it's been complied with. What hasn't been completed is agreement on the mitigation plan, which is the subject of the hearing tonight. And again, I mean, we can agree to not agree or disagree with respect to the planning plan, but that's what we're discussing this evening.
So this is what I was trying to avoid, but I think it's worth saying at you know, at the hearing that took place at the end of last year, so the application showed only the 12-inch caliber trees. And at one point during the hearing, the question was asked, what else is coming out? And the response was, oh, just some shrubs and stuff, something along those lines. But in fact, there were 15 other trees that were coming out that maybe weren't 12-inch caliber, were clearly healthy trees, right? And so the 12-inch caliber issue was the 12-inch caliber measurement is relevant to stormwater projects and not to the notice of intent. So the concern was that the amended order of conditions was given under a misunderstanding, without placing any blame, a misunderstanding of exactly what the project was. So the agent Charlotte and I went to the site and we talked to Will and we looked at it, and I think I counted 15 other trees that were not the ones that were 12-inch caliber that were listed to come out. And so then we said, hey, Will, do you mind holding off on cutting these down? Let's go back and talk to the full commission. This is me and Will, you know, we worked together for 2 years or something, right? So he's a commissioner, and, you know, we didn't take it on, like, you know, full procedural posture of cease and desist and blah, blah, blah. I'm just like, hey, but Will only had a certain opportunity to have the arborist come to take down the trees. And, you know, and it certainly Will opinion that this is a benefit. I think he said that pretty clearly. So he went and had the trees taken out, despite the chair saying, "Hey, let's come back and talk to the full commission." And it was probably my, shortcoming in not asking Charlotte to issue a cease and desist until such time as we could fully review and amend. But we worked together for a couple of years, so we just thought everything was going to sort of smooth itself out because we're friendly and we had a good working relationship and we had worked on bunch of projects together. But that's where the history of the project is in fact important, and it's not reasonable just to say that the existing order of conditions calls for a mitigation plan and now we're just discussing the mitigation plan, because the fact is, if you look at the history, the amended order of conditions was approved on information that wasn't necessarily either conveyed accurately or understood completely by the commission. And that's without putting any blame. So that's sort of the history. And that's why I think we're at sort of an impasse here as to how to resolve it. Does that help? Yeah.
No, thank you, Chair Romano.
Clarifications. Sorry.
I'm sorry. I was just going to say thank you. I haven't reviewed all of the prior information, but I just want to point out there's no requirement under either the state regulations or your local regulations to identify any particular caliper of tree. You correctly stated the only mention
That's right.
the size of a tree is shown on a site plan relates to the stormwater bylaw. I've got to believe, however, that prior to amending this order of conditions, that the commissioners visited the site with the approved site plan, which is something that's routinely done. Am I mistaken that this was approved without any visit?
I did not perform a site visit until after when it came to light. I don't know if the other commissioners did. I usually don't miss site visits. It's one of my favorite parts about being in this role. But if the other commissioners had an opportunity, please let us know.
Well, regardless, you're looking at a site plan that shows a limit of the clearing. You had every opportunity to go out there and review it in the field as you would typically do. If the commission did not do that, well, shame on you. It's still a valid.
Hold on. Okay, sorry, I'll let you go. Yep.
And so if there's no requirement to specify the size of trees, it's an academic argument, or is someone going to get in trouble because they didn't identify a 6-inch caliper tree, which is not required to be shown on your site plans? That's the problem.
But there is a requirement to be forthright and honest with the commission. And when the request, when it shows 5 12-inch trees and the specific question was asked, what else is coming out? And the answer was just a bunch of shrubs and stuff. And that is not, so there is a requirement. So there is a requirement, if asked, to be accurate in your response. So
I'm happy to
brush that under the rug.
I'm happy to review the recording to see what was actually said, and we can provide that information.
Shame on you for not doing it already.
I know
sorry,
exactly
Mr.
what you're talking
McIntyre.
about, and I can clarify it.
So I'm
like.
sorry. So the purpose of this hearing is to approve or disapprove a mitigation plan. If you want to get into enforcement, then please serve an enforcement order and we can discuss enforcement in a different context. But again, you can't conflate the two. So either we're going to be directing our energy toward a mitigation plan, or if you wish to pursue a discussion regarding enforcement, then serve an enforcement order. We will do all of the necessary research and we'll respond to your enforcement order.
See, Adam, I largely defer and trust your wisdom and your experience on this. That being said, the whole point of what we're doing here is trying to work with a Cohasset resident who has a project and it's already well underway, and we can't unwind the clock and put back, trees that have been around for decades that were cut down without the express understanding or authorization of the commission. And it may be one thing to say, well, it wasn't really your, it may be your fault because you didn't go look, but the question was asked. And it sounds like Will had some clarification regarding that question. Sorry, Will.
No, I was just explaining to Victoria that specific question. If you want to talk about it, I think it was I forget his name because he joined the commission after me and he's not here tonight, but he asked what is behind the trees in the 1,300 square feet of clearing, which there are no trees. All the trees that were cut down are closer to the 50-foot buffer line than to the limit of work. So we asked what was back there, and there isn't. You can go out there and look now. There were never any trees back there. That was a specific question. It didn't have anything to do with
Misleading.
the number of trees. Also, the other clarification was when you brought me back to a meeting in January to count the trees, there were not 15 extra, there were 12 total. So I showed the 7 over 12 inches on my plans. You brought me back, we showed the images and agreed that there were 12. There were not 15 in addition.
Well, I mean, I'm like ultra permissive, although I may not seem like it right now, but there were some small beech trees, and there was a discussion of, are those beech trees, are they saplings, are they trees, whatever. So when I use that number 15, but we're good with the 12. I don't think we're trying to go past the 12. Look, we're at the number 12. I was just expressing what I saw when I did the site visit, right? I'm not trying to say that now your mitigation needs to be 28 trees or something. I'm not trying to raise the number.
Yeah.
We've all agreed on 12. We're not, but that being said, I was trying to give the sort of the history of what happened to Mr. Brodsky so that it's not quite as clear cut as, deciding on the mitigation plan. I think there's one other thing that I think is important to understand, from Mr. Brodsky's perspective. I know from past hearings and working with Mr. Brodsky that prior decisions that the commission has made are important to Mr. Brodsky, and there are future decisions. And over the years since I've been part of the commission, we really have had made an effort, in my opinion. This is new. I haven't been here as long as the rest of the commissioners, but we really have made an effort. And whether it's expressed in our bylaw or not, it is our conduct, and it is past what we've done. Trees that are cut down in the 50, we replace it 2 to 1, and trees that are cut down between the 50 and 100, we replace it 1 to 1. And unless they are dying or hazardous, we have been pretty consistent in those numbers. And I don't know, and we sort of challenged Will in a funny sense to like show us where we haven't, and that didn't happen. And Charlotte actually made a great table showing us that it did. And Will, I don't think I'm full of it, right? I know you just sort of like, kind of blew me off what I'm saying, but yeah. So anyway, I'm just trying to give a full perspective to Mr. Brodsky as to what's going on. I actually want to keep this moving forward. If Commissioner Bell and Commissioner McIntyre and the will of the commission is this isn't sufficient, and counsel for the Ashens is saying, well, fine, then just give us an enforcement action and we'll deal with it in that way, then that's what we can do. Or we could sit here and try to hash it out for a little bit tonight and see if we can come to a resolution and not have to issue an enforcement order. So, look, Adam, I defer to your experience. I do land use, but not this kind of land use. I just really appreciate my role in the commission and being able to help protect Cohasset. So,
Chair Romano, we would like to reach agreement regarding the mitigation plan, and we keep getting distracted. One of the problems you have with your tree policy is that it's a policy and not a regulation. There are a whole series of wetland cases where commissions have adopted policies. They're fundamentally unenforceable unless you put it into regulation. Having said that, we want to work with the commission to come up with an appropriate mitigation plan. I think that to the point, if you want to apply your policy of 2 to 1 trees, we can't fit that many trees in this area because of the required spacing to allow these trees to be planted appropriately. So the commission's got to be flexible with respect to review of this mitigation plan. I think they're on thin ice, and at some point, someone's going to challenge you on your tree policy. I mean, if the commission wants to regulate trees, there are other ways of doing it. For example, Hingham. Hingham has a land alteration regulation. It's actually administered by the planning board, that if you take down trees within a setback, you need to replace those trees. And they're very specific requirements in their regulations. Again, I have a philosophical problem with regulating trees in the buffer zone. There's clearly vegetation, that would be altered, clearly within your jurisdiction. But we lose sight of what is the impact of that activity on the wetland. And so the sheer replacement of 2-to-1 upland trees in an upland buffer zone, I think is, I'm not an expert in this area. This is a question for Brad Holmes, but I think you're missing the connection to the protection of the wetland. I personally, I sit through dozens, hundreds of these hearings, and I'm always told by commissions that if you're going to be, mitigating, you're much better off creating a mitigation area that has different kinds of things, not just all trees or not just wildflowers, but a mixture of different kinds of vegetation to create a really robust habitat. So, I look at this plan, it seems reasonable. If it can be tweaked, I think the Ashtons are willing to do it. Again, I'm not inviting an enforcement order. I just want to separate the discussion of alleged violations from the objective this evening, which is to review the mitigation plan.
And I appreciate that. And unfortunately, Commissioner Fernando wasn't able to make it tonight, but he also had that sort of like looking forward, approach to this as opposed to, litigating what happened in the past. So, he certainly agreed with you there too. And so, let's go back and, hear from the commissioners again. Let's see if this sort of belabored discussion has, shaken anything loose from the trees that are on our shoulders. Commissioner Bell?
Well, I think to directly respond to Mr. Brodsky's comment about we should be paying attention to a mixture of mitigation techniques, I'd agree with that. And that would mean that we should include some trees here.
Commissioner Berrigan?
I think Tom brought up a good point that maybe we should include a few trees in there also.
Commissioner McIntyre?
Thank you. I don't have comment at this time. Thank you.
So let me ask, obviously, requiring you to plant trees that would shade out the beds would defeat the purpose of what you're doing. So I understand why that's sort of a non-starter for you guys, and I get that. Looking at your plan, what if you see there's those 3 hollies that are sort of, if this is oriented correctly, that are in the southeast corner at the red line. Yes. Would a tree or two that went in there shade out your beds?
Yeah, that's probably 15 feet away. So in the summer, a 15-20 foot tree is going to shade everything on that end, various parts of the day.
Okay. And then what are the commission? Let me start with you, Commissioner Bell. What is the opinion of, maybe, not requiring, the great number here, but allowing some mitigation trees to be elsewhere if they're not right here?
I think that's what the original order of conditions specified, actually. We were sympathetic to the idea that the shade should be preserved, or the shade should be reduced here. And I thought we had an agreement with that original order of conditions that trees would be put in, but they wouldn't necessarily be put in right here next to the greenhouse or the raised beds. And somehow that seems to have slipped. I don't know why or how, but it did.
Can I just ask a question with that logic? I'm just like very curious, just from an ecological standpoint and how you view this. We're talking about a very specific area. And so mitigation to offset that specific area someplace else. I know there was talks about putting it in the parking lot at Wampatuck. I don't know if you've been down there, but it's pretty saturated. Or putting it elsewhere, but that does not offset what you guys are saying needs to be offset in that area. You're putting it somewhere else and you're actually overburdening that specific ecosystem, because each little area is its own ecosystem if you think about it. So, and keeping in mind the purpose of the vegetation that was there was for filtration of the downstream wetland. So if we stick a tree somewhere else on our very wooded property, what benefit is that to that downstream wetlands that's not connected anymore?
Yeah, it's a good question. And I would agree that it is somewhat arbitrary. However, it's something that we've done over and over again. Now, Mr. Brodsky may question whether we can even require such a thing, but we've tried to work with people to allow them to do most of what they want. And we do come up with these arbitrary solutions sometimes. We're trying to preserve some precedent here. What I would be troubled by, and I take Mr. Brodsky's suggestion seriously. I think we do need to overhaul our regulations so that we don't end up in a situation like this, where we don't have to rely on precedent that's on shaky grounds to begin with. But nevertheless, our precedent has been to find a place on people's property where they can plant some trees to mitigate what they've taken down. Now, if you start thinking about, okay, the immediate area here, yes, maybe one of the things that's missing here, of course, is canopy. We've lost canopy, and we're losing canopy across town. This is a larger issue that bit by bit we're cutting down trees in town. That does have an impact on wetlands. It has an impact on a lot of things. So I guess we have justified that by thinking along those terms, or along those lines rather, that if we're losing canopy here, maybe we can gain it someplace else.
Chair Romano, oh, I'm sorry. I think Mr. Bell's got some great ideas, because this commission has allowed offsite mitigation. Doesn't necessarily need to be on the property or adjacent to the property. And the commission has also allowed, for example, payment in lieu, contribution to the town's ability to plant trees elsewhere. So those are things that we may want to talk about.
So Mrs. Ashton, one thing is, so just one thing quickly, a purpose is filtration. Another purpose is habitat. And I realize that you've shown that there's hummingbirds, butterflies, and bees that are going to benefit from this habitat, but
Not
from the decade.
Not
I'm sorry.
exclusively. I do want to point that out. Those are
Yeah,
just the endangered ones.
No, and I appreciate that. But there were other animals and wildlife that benefited from the decades old trees that were there, right? So it's not only about filtration, it's also about habitat, and the biomass that's below the soil and above the soil provides different habitat for different creatures and different wildlife that maybe it's changed. I'm certainly not one to express one's better than the other. I don't know, but let's not say this. Let's not just limit our focus to the fact that this is also going to filter water.
I think her point is that is one of the interests of the regulation that is benefited. There are other interests that we've shown are benefited by this project, all the interests, including the limited project interests. But to come back to the tree fund idea, just to, one of the things we offered early on was, after we went around and looked at our property and knowing, like what Brad said, the space that a new tree needs, none of those, like Victoria said, none of those are adequate to plant a tree. So what we offered was to replant the trees that were all cut down by the town across from the Beechwood playground. There were six multiple 100-year-old trees that were cut down there that we could replant. So that was an offer that we had put out there.
And I think you should,
Sorry.
Valerio, we had sent an email very late at night from our last very unsettling meeting. So, I mean, we were really turning, and we've taken this to heart. I really hope you guys realize that. And we are committed to make this work, and its feasibility needs to be there on both sides though for it to work. I do also want to say that we've gone as far as to talk to Wild Cohasset and Open Spaces and talked extensively about this project, and they are so enthusiastic about what this could bring to our community, which is also a protected or an interest of ours, of yours. And they are endorsing this. And I just wanted to throw that out there in terms of really the symbiotic relationship that can further blossom within the community because of a project like this, even if it's first of its kind.
So I mean, I would love to make it a condition that there'd be like 4 Girl Scout trips there a year too. I don't know.
Fabulous.
I don't know, Mr. Brodsky.
She's a troop leader, yeah.
I mean, I would love something like that. I mean, I'm all for it. I think, you know, I have, you know, 3 kids in Cohasset as well. And you know, they're all boys, but you know, any outdoor activity that a kid today is forced to do, I'm all for it because, you know, anything to get them off the screen. So that's, you know, I love that kind of thing. And I don't know. And, since I've been around, I haven't ever seen the tree fund contributed to as mitigation. Off the bat, you mentioned 6 trees across from the Beechwood playground that by that cemetery that were taken down by the town. I can't picture where that is, and I don't have enough information to say whether, you know, definitively if that's a solution. But you know, I mean, with those 6 trees and what we have in front of us and 4 Girl Scout trips a year, I think now we're getting somewhere. I don't necessarily think that cash going into a fund is something that solves it for me. But if that's something that everybody, you know, is happy with, I'm just one vote. But I think now we're finally starting to, you know, really, you know, get somewhere. And I don't know. Let's go back through. Well, Mr. Brodsky.
Chair, can I just quickly add that the tree bank for the town, it's relatively new, but it is under kind of the oversight of DPW under their street tree policy. So while we may or may not have overlapping interests for recreation, their street tree list is very different from ours. In fact, theirs includes Norway maple. So I've suggested obviously for them to remove that. But yeah, so I guess like I agree that I don't think at least the specific tree bank for the town of Cohasset as it's set up right now aligns with the interests in the Wetlands Protection Act and our bylaws. But it would be nice in theory if the commission eventually had its own tree fund, which we could establish through a revolving account at town meeting to deal with situations like this, where you may not have necessarily the space or the conditions to put trees back. But unfortunately, we don't have that right now. So just wanted to clarify.
Yeah, and I don't.
Chair Romano, it's Adam Brodsky. Ms. Peptel, do you remember last year where we had a potential enforcement matter on Border Street?
Yes, and that was a very, yes. And that was a specific, like on the internal end, we don't have like our own account yet. It was put in a very specific account to put those plantings in. But unfortunately, that account cannot be used for like other purposes to receive and utilize funds on a revolving basis. So yes, correct. Like we had a specific situation where the applicant paid the commission to donate money for trees to be planted elsewhere. So the concept of that was done, but the actual account has not been set up to do that for other sites.
And
I just figure that out, Ms. Pechdel.
Sorry, go ahead, Mr. Brodsky.
Oh, no, I was saying there's actual precedent of making payment. We can figure out the mechanism to do it. I'm not.
Yeah, I mean, if that's something that the Ashkins want to do, I'm uncomfortable asking for cash for them to do this project. I'd rather see a couple. I'd rather give them a couple years to plant some trees.
Victoria's a good point. You're asking for it either way if we have to plant trees, but I think it's better to plant the actual trees than to give the money that who knows when it'll get planted. So like across from the Beechwood playground or wherever, you know, if we can get the DPW to let us, I think it'd be better to actually put the trees in and put the money somewhere.
I'll give you a couple
I agree
years.
completely with that.
I agree.
We're still waiting. We're still waiting for those cedars to be put in around Straits Pond, and it's unfortunate that we didn't structure that so that they were sure to go in, and the trees that we had agreed upon the species of tree that we agreed upon was going to go in. So if there's some mechanism, Charlotte, for the Ashtons to actually not necessarily make a donation, but have, some mechanism to put those trees in, and you can call it the Ashton Grove for all I care. I mean, but if
I think it'd be a
there's
good Girl Scout event.
yeah,
It would
Sure.
be.
Arbor
Tom, are
Day
you
thing,
talking about
whatever.
Straits Pond or across from the Beechwood
no,
Playground?
no, I want to bring up I want to comment on what Mr. Brodsky said, where we did require an applicant who lives on Border Street who did not have room for a tree to put 2 trees in, and we proposed, I think it was Kathy and I proposed, that there's a spot along Straits Pond where there certainly was a need of trees. And so that was the agreement. However, that never got done. I think the money went into this fund, and of course it just
No,
wasn't.
we'll definitely plant the trees. It's just unfortunately DPW has extremely limited staffing and we lost our tree warden. So unfortunately,
Yeah.
right around that time that we were working that plan out, we saw a reduction in staff. So the trees will
so-
definitely be planted. It's on my list to touch base with the acting tree warden this spring because we're going to be ordering trees for a grant. But yeah, so unfortunately we
So
haven't
is it,
had.
Charlotte, is there a mechanism for the Ashtons, for example, to put these trees in on town property?
In terms of the mechanism, it would probably be a discussion with DPW. I will note that that area, I agree that those trees, I don't know why they came out. Only one looked like it was slightly hollowed out, but I don't know why those beautiful trees got cut down. But unfortunately, I don't think they're in the buffer zone, but they are, if you drive down Beechwood Street right before the intersection between Doane Street and Beechwood Street. And they were right across the street from the Beechwood playground. It was like 3 or 4 massive trees that were cut down.
Do they need to be in the buffer zone? I mean, if it's just contributing to the canopy, which is Tom's concern, and it's diminishing canopy across town, I wouldn't see that as needing to be connected, but
I
And
think
that is-
in
and that
terms
is
of
my
the,
concern. I'm not wedded to putting something into
buffer.
the buffer zones particularly. I think it's important to maintain and in fact increase Cohasset's canopy. It's important going forward, and we're slow to be doing this. In fact, I don't think there's enough will yet to do it, but so I'd be fine with it. Personally, I'd be fine with it going in at a place where mature trees have been taken down on Beechwood.
so I
Regardless
think
of the buffer.
overall, we have not requested mitigation outside of a buffer zone for a notice of intent. I can look back to double check that, but most of the time when we're discussing mitigation, even if it is offsite, is always in a buffer zone. So this would be a first if we were to consider that to go outside a buffer zone. But I agree with the concept of course, not losing tree canopy, but just overall, we have not done that to my knowledge outside a buffer zone.
Romano, it's Adam Brodsky, just 2 points. The Ashtons are going to need a certificate of compliance, so they're not going to get that until the trees are planted. Again, if the commission is agreeable to planting these additional trees at the Beechwood Playground, that's the mechanism to ensure that the work is going to be performed.
So let me just propose something that's very direct here and see what we think about it as a commission. I'm not asking for a vote. I'm just making a proposal. 6 trees, because that was the number that I heard, across from Beechwood Playground. 3 fewer holly and 2 fewer pussy willows here, or you could put all of them, but and that would get us to a total of 20, which in some sense would satisfy my OCD for consistency. And then the other condition of having, like Girl Scouts come, up to 4 times a year, because I mean, it is one of the ways that you pitch this, and so, assuming that they can come, right? You can't force the Girl Scouts to go. If the Girl Scouts say, look, we don't have time for that in our thing, but you just make it available, 4 trips a year. And then we move this thing forward. I don't know. I mean, so does everybody understand what I just proposed? Commissioner Bell, do you have any thoughts about it?
No, I think that's a good path forward.
Commissioner Berrigan?
Could you run the numbers thing by again? I didn't quite get.
Yeah, so right now there's 19 trees between the pussy willows and the hollies proposed on this plan.
Yeah.
Just for consistency, although Adam brings up a really good point. We got to, and then Charlotte was talking to council about this today. We really got to rehaul all of this in our bylaw, and you know, and make it more clear. And that's something that we're going to really work towards at the soonest available town meeting when we can get it done. So I think at a certain point here, you know, precedent and consistency we can start to put to bed, because we're going to clean it up and formalize it. But that being said, there's 19 between the pussy willows and the hollies. I would like to see 20 total. And you know, there's some concern as to whether pussy willows and hollies really are trees. They certainly don't have the biomass either above or below the ground, but we're not trying to add shade here because that defeats the whole purpose. So remove 5 of those, maybe 3 hollies and 2 pussy willows, and then add the 6 trees across from Beechwood Playground. And if they wanted to make a Girl Scout event to do any of this stuff, or Boy Scouts or whatever, you know, that, you know, I'm certainly, you know, all for that, but I wouldn't require that. But that would get us to the number 20. It would, you know, repopulate that area, although outside of the buffer zone. So, and then also have an additional condition that they, you know, make this beautiful garden available to, you know, some, I don't even think it has to be Girl Scouts, some recreational town, you know, whatever. I mean, we can come up with that language, the thought, you know, our minds can put something together, and then sort of move this thing forward. I don't know. Yeah.
Mr. Chair, I'm sorry to complicate
Got
this.
it.
I mean, if the commission agrees with that, great. My only unfortunate complication is I don't know why those trees were cut down. Will and Victoria, I'm not sure if you were told by the town why they were cut down, or if the town even plans to replace anything in that area. So if the town doesn't allow trees to go back in that area, then what's our backup? You know,
Yeah, we could just say 6 trees. I don't know. Maybe we talk to DPW, figure out where we can put them instead of trying to put something nebulous out there.
It is
Well, yeah,
possible.
I mean, if you want, we could say, you know, I mean, well, let me ask you this. Right now, your project is moving along as if you have the order of conditions, right? Like you're moving along. So nothing. So if, let's say we said, okay, let's come back in a couple weeks, and in that time, let's talk to DPW and see if we can put the 6 trees there. If not, we'll put them somewhere else. And we'll put you at the top of the agenda again, so you guys don't have to sit around. We're going to be in agreement in principle. It sounds like Victoria's, you know, making faces at me, and I'm sorry. But
No, she was saying she thinks they're fixing a sidewalk, so we might have to wait for that to be done.
My guess is the sidewalk is so treacherous and dangerous that they probably pulled them to be able to fix the sidewalk from like just this hazard perspective, and then they'd probably plant something again. But I think that's an easy enough conversation. That's just my guess.
yeah, and then then if it's not there, it's somewhere else. But we're agreed now, maybe, hopefully, and we haven't talked to Commissioner Berrigan yet, or Commissioner McIntyre, well, let's keep going. Commissioner Berrigan, you've got the sense of it. In principle, we're not taking a vote yet, but like sort of a straw poll here in print. And I know Adam might have some issues with me doing a straw poll, but Commissioner Berrigan.
Yes, I like that idea. I just didn't, it went
Yeah.
quickly, the -5 + 6, but I completely understand, and I like that idea. And there's plenty of other places in the town that we could put it if we can't put it on the those 6 other trees on Beechwood.
Commissioner McIntyre, thoughts?
Yeah, I think we're headed in the right direction in terms of, you know, discussion. I think there are options. I think we can work in the town to find locations. I'm looking right now at the Iron Reservoir and that berm that you can pull down the end of Beechwood. I don't know if there's some sort of maintenance requirement there, but there's other options. That's my point. I think
there are definitely multiple conservation properties in town where maybe the tree canopy could be better.
So let me restate it, and then we will all agree in principle. I'm not sure we should necessarily take any sort of vote tonight, but I think we all trust each other enough to know that if, when I state this and everybody nods their head and then we say, let's come back in a couple weeks after we've had an opportunity to talk to DPW or whatever, you guys are still moving your project along. So nothing is keeping you from doing, what your plan is. So, 6 trees, but not bush / trees, and I don't know exactly, but 6 trees.
Chairman Romano, can I just ask one
Of
question?
course. I'm sorry, Chris.
It's not related to mitigation. I was not part of the hearing that approved the garden, but why is it angled in a way why isn't it not angled so that it's more outside of the 50? Is there a
Yeah,
reason?
we did a shade study. And well, there's multiple things, mostly shade, but there's also our groundwater recharge and ledge over here that this was the only spot that worked for it because of those things.
Could you clarify that? Where is your soil really thin? Can you use a pointer to show?
Chair Romano, I mean, we're not going to revisit the project, which is.
Just asking a question, Mr. Brodsky,
No, but again, we're gonna spend another 20 minutes. The Ashtons are gonna have to pay me to attend, and we're talking about things that are irrelevant. I mean, one of the things that the commission lose sight of is that applicants have consultants and they pay them by the hour. So again, these are academic discussions because there's an approved project.
I think we could have had the answer by now instead of you chiming in.
The whole study was in our initial application. The alternative study that's required in a limited project.
Tom, did you want to follow up with anything?
No, I don't.
Okay, so I'm gonna state it, and I'm sympathetic, Mr. Brodsky, the hours that I spend doing similar work to yours. So let's keep it. That's why I thought I would jump in instead of going back and forth with sort of a firm proposal that I'd sort of pieced together after everything I've heard from different people. So the firm proposal is this: 6 trees to be planted, Charlotte, is there a way I can use the word tree to be more definitive that we don't have something that could also be called a bush?
We could say like an oak tree or a maple tree.
Well, I mean, one of the other standards that we've been implementing in site plans over the years is for planting replacements. Deciduous trees have to be at least 2 to 3 inches in caliper, come from our lists, and then coniferous trees. I don't know why the height is. I think for coniferous trees the caliper size is different, but it's 6 to 8 feet in height for coniferous, 2 to 3 inches. We've gone up and down with 2.5 to 3.5, 2 to 3. For deciduous, and 6 to 8 feet in height for coniferous. That's pretty much been standard on a lot of site plans for replacement trees. And they
Okay,
have to
so
come from our
6
list, the trees
replacement
that we-
trees, at least 2 inches caliber if deciduous, and at least 6 feet in height if coniferous. Plus, how many total pussy willows are there?
Well, we don't even want to change this. We're going to leave them
Okay.
because we think
All
this
right,
is good.
yeah.
Yeah.
I was trying to give you the option to do less.
No.
Okay.
We think this, like we said from the beginning, we think this is good for everything.
Okay.
So
Okay, that's great. I won't belabor that. Okay. So 6 trees, at least 2 inches caliber if deciduous, and at least 6 feet in height if coniferous. And then, make your garden available when convenient for you, at least, let's say 3 times a year for some local, child recreation activity.
That was always the plan.
Publicize it, like reach out to them, so it's not just available, but like reach out to them, have fun with some scouts or whatever it is.
we are Girl Scout troop leaders. We have a Daisy troop.
Oh, perfect. So you guys,
we're the
Okay.
service unit coordinators for all of the troops in Cohasset.
For the town, yeah.
For the town.
okay, all right.
There will be no problem in doing that.
Yeah.
If you have
Okay,
Boy Scouts
awesome.
that would like the same, send them our way.
Okay, great. And then the plan as in front of us. So
May
the
I-
6 trees, the scouts, or the whatever recreation, but it sounds like scouts, and the plan as in front of us. That is our agreement in principle. Let's continue this. Do you think 2 weeks is enough to really talk to DPW? I mean, the project's moving along. I'm sorry.
Can-
Yes.
Yeah,
Victoria.
Will, I will call
Wait, hold on,
Chris
Charlotte. I think Victoria had something else.
Murray.
I just wanted to say if we needed to call DPW, because I don't mind doing that specific to that area if it offloads for you, Charlotte. 'Cause
I
know
will,
you're bouncing through.
No, thank you for the offer. I really appreciate that. I have to talk to Chris Murray, the acting tree warden
Okay.
anyway. And we will be working this spring to order trees anyway. So this is actually a
Okay.
pretty opportune moment. And since Mr. Brodsky kindly reminded me to also remind Mr. Murray that we need to order the 2-seaters, I think it would be a really good discussion for me to meet with Chris. And then I think if you guys have availability next week, maybe we could set up either a Zoom call or have Chris maybe meet us in front of the Beechwood Playground and we'll figure it out if that spot actually works. So I will definitely touch base with you, but yeah, I'll happily reach out to him first because he's on my list of people to call.
And I don't know if
So-
it's helpful for that conversation, but we would love, I think Will just mentioned it, for it to be a scouting planting ceremony type thing. Earth Day
Right.
would be awesome. If they need more time than that, we can pivot, but definitely offer it to the wider community. As a
Yeah, I
proposal.
definitely think the resources to help with planting the trees will be vital because that's literally why certain trees, as we mentioned for the Border Street property, have not been planted because of their limited staffing. And they spend most of their time obviously pruning and cutting trees rather than ordering and planting them.
All right, so we're agreed in principle. Now, last thing, do you think 2 weeks is enough time considering ideally, I mean, hopefully we would get them planted this spring, right? So,
Yes.
that would be sometime in April. So maybe we could try to come back in 2 weeks and then we could, finalize this and that would give you time to, put it together and get it done in April.
I
Or we
think
could do
that's a valid time frame, and Will and Victoria, if you agree with that, I think that's enough time for
Yeah.
us to get in touch with DPW, figure something out with the 6 trees and come back to the commission on March 20th.
Okay, great. So let's continue this to March 20th, and that is our understanding that we've all, agreed upon, and that's what we'll stick with. Do any other commissioners have anything else they'd like to add before we move on to the next matter? All right, hearing nothing. Sorry, did somebody say something? Mr. Brodsky, did you have anything else? I know, like me, you get paid by the word, so.
No, thank you. And
Okay.
thank you for being flexible and coming up with a creative solution to this problem.
Yes, I'm happy we've done that. So we're going to continue this discussion to March 20th. Thanks everybody for your time. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Thank
everyone.
you.
See ya.
Yep.
Yes.
Good night,
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.
Okay. On to our next hearing. So now, yep, sorry. Oh, guys, do you mind? Sorry, Charlotte.
Oh, no, go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off. Go ahead. Mr.
I know it's an early meeting, but do you mind if we take a quick 5-minute break? Anybody have an
No.
objection to that?
If Mr. Mullen and Mr. Zabrowski are also okay with that.
Yep.
I was gonna say, Mr. Chair, and as long as the commission wants me to remain for the next scheduled event on the agenda still, either way,
Mr.
I'm
Mullen, if you're
not a
okay with
problem, of
that, that would be
course, but-
awesome. It's going to be really brief.
my pleasure.
I hate to drag out the attorney time as well, but let's come back at 7:55 if that's all right with everyone.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello again.
Hey, guys.
Hello.
Thank you
Uh,
guys as well for your flexibility on all my texts and emails about site visits. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I don't know if one was canceled or if, I don't know, but yeah.
I changed the time for one of them on March 26th, so thank you. It sounds like we'll get there a little earlier. But yeah, thank you guys. I'm
Okay.
sorry for all the texts and emails.
Chris, are you back?
Hey, Chris. Hi, Tom. You guys still there?
Tom unmuted. Chris is back. Let's see. I don't know. Is Mr. Brodsky part of the next one?
Yes.
Adam, are you back? Yes, he is.
Yes, sir.
There we go.
So next we have a continued enforcement order for beach alteration at 100 Whitehead Road. The hearing on this enforcement order is now resumed. I want to state directly first that I know there's a cease and desist in effect that remains. No work or alterations are to be done. I also understand that there may be an NOI submitted in the future. So if that's the case, I don't want to belabor this tonight if we're just going to be waiting on an NOI to discuss it. I would like to ask if there is, and I understand that there may not be, not being, not specializing or having necessarily the depth of knowledge, but there may not be specific mitigation measures other than letting nature sort of reclaim this area that would have any valuable effect. And if that is indeed the case, and I'd probably quickly like to hear from the other commissioners as to their thoughts on that, then I have no problem just sort of letting this linger until we see the NOI. If there is mitigation that would have value and we should, start and push forward to that, then I probably would like to see, whether it's a mitigation plan or an NOI that contemplates mitigation sooner rather than later. So with that, Commissioner Bell, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think that nature will take its course there.
Okay, Commissioner Berrigan?
Yeah, let nature take its course.
Commissioner McIntyre, was there anything else?
No, I think the point is that it's the disturbance was, that's what we don't want to happen again. And I'm in agreement that it'll return to its natural state on its own.
Charlotte, is there anything else you have to add?
Other than that we will pick up, we'll keep the enforcement order open for now. We can amend it as needed depending on when and how the notice of intent is received and reviewed. But I guess, Mr. Brodsky, do you have any, I know you said obviously they're working on it, but I didn't know as of tonight if you had any updates as to when that might be submitted, then great. But if not, that was really all I had for tonight.
Of course, briefly, good evening, Adam Brodsky, and I represent the Kingsbourne Trust. The notice of intent was filed this afternoon, so I promised Charlotte that we would try and file it. So I saw the email from Mr. Holmes' office, so ECR filed it. So you haven't seen it?
Okay.
So
Okay, yes, 90 Whitehead. I apologize. It was submitted for 90 Whitehead.
Yes,
so thank
because the beach is actually associated with 90 Whitehead. So it has been filed, and you should know that Mr. Holmes has made several site visits, as has Brendan Sullivan. And Mr. Holmes is prepared to testify that the beach has already reformed itself as a result of the winter conditions. So he does not recommend a restoration plan, and we move forward with a notice of intent for a beach management plan. And we used actually the beach management plan that the commission approved for the Sandy Beach Association Beach as a model. Obviously a different set of circumstances, but that was the template that we used because the commission has seen that before.
Mr. Mullen, do you have anything else that you think we should be considering right now?
I'm not at this time. I mean, it sounds like, right now, the enforcement order will remain in place, as I'm understanding is what the commission is looking for. But in the meantime, it sounds like there's a notice of intent that's already underway and that there may be some harmonious resolution to those two sooner rather than later.
Okay, great. So why don't we leave the enforcement order open until we receive the notice of intent? And part of the reason for that is to keep the cease and desist. so that we don't, have any further, change or work done on that beach until we see a plan for that. And we'll just take that up whenever whenever it's properly noticed and it's in front of us properly.
Ms.
Thanks,
Beckler,
Mike.
you did receive it, didn't you?
I did. I didn't
Alright,
immediately
okay.
recognize it because it said
Thank you.
90 Whitehead.
Okay.
But since it was submitted a little late past our deadline for April 3rd, it would go on the next meeting in April. So I'll just continue the enforcement order as well, and we can just pair it with the NOI so we can keep the discussion, to the NOI and the enforcement order if needed. Put it on, I think it's April 17th, 14 days plus April 3rd. Yeah, I think that's April 17th. So.
Commissioner.
So as a matter of housekeeping, it seems to me that we should amend the address so that it is pointed at the right parcel. The enforcement order.
Sure,
So
yeah.
shall- yeah.
And then I guess if we're gonna amend it, do we want to make any other modifications to it? The requirements, as Mr. As Chair had specified, would be it was the cease and desist and the submission of a mitigation plan without a specific date at the time because we didn't know what mitigation was needed. So we can modify that as the commission sees fit. I can pull it up just to correctly reflect the well, technically, I would argue it's almost both addresses because there was also some issues with the dock, which will also be addressed in a future NOI. But yeah, I would want it to obviously include 90 and 100 Whitehead.
Why don't we just amend the address to 90 and 100? We can leave, an open-ended mitigation plan for future discussion. I don't know how thorough we need the amendment to be since we're not really
Okay.
expecting one anyway, but let's just make sure at the next hearing that everything is noticed properly for the right addresses so that any interested parties are aware of what addresses may be affected. Does that sound good?
Yeah, if you just want to revise it to correct the addresses, that's
I
fine.
think
We'll
that's-
keep
unless
90.
there was a date certain on a mitigation plan that we don't really care about anyway, then let's just leave it the way it is. And we can, just make sure it's noticed for the right addresses for next time.
Okay. Very briefly, these were the conditions. Just to make sure that you guys can see it before you vote.
Well,
So yeah, it was the
wait,
cease
hold
and
on. I don't think we're closing it. We're just continuing it.
so you don't want to amend it to correct the right addresses?
Oh, just the address. Yeah.
Okay. Because this was the language, again, back in, we had submitted this for August, this was an August enforcement order, so we wanted the discussion to happen on September 19th. So do you want me to just modify that to say to be discussed as needed with a future NOI or something? As needed, we'll just keep it general, even though we kind of know we may not need it, but just keep it? Or do you just want to leave it as is?
I don't think we need to belabor this.
Okay.
Yep. I would just fix the date and
Correct the address,
yeah.
okay.
And the rest of the enforcement order remains in effect and continued until
Okay.
April 17th.
And Mr. Chair, would you be able to, or someone be able to make a motion to amend the enforcement order to include 90 and 100 Whitehead?
I'll make,
I move to amend the enforcement order to include the address 90 and 100 Whitehead Road.
and Mr. Brodsky, is the NOI only for 90 or will the NOI affect 100 as well?
No, there'll be a separate NOI for 100. So that concerned, they put an additional float in the water.
Yeah.
Which was inconsistent with their Chapter 91 license. So we're going to be submitting a notice of intent for that additional float. We will be then seeking an amendment of the Chapter 91 license once we have an order of conditions. What we might do in the interim is, and I've spoken to or communicated with the harbor master, is seek a 10A permit. Again, if the commission issues an order of conditions approving the additional float, to have an annual permit issued so that the float could go in the water this summer while we're waiting for the Chapter 91 program to amend the existing waterways license. So that's the game plan.
All right, great. Thank you. We'll pick those up as they may be appropriately in front of us.
Oh, and I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, Mr. Bell made a motion. Does anyone want to second it? For the amended order of
Second.
condition, include
I'll
90 and
second
100
it.
Whitehead.
Second by Commissioner Berrigan. I think we can just do a voice vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That amendment to the enforcement order passes unanimously, and this matter is continued to April 17th.
Thank you very much. Good night.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes,
Good night.
thank you,
Mr.
Connor.
Brodsky.
Thanks, Adam.
Have a nice evening, Commissioners.
Yeah, thank you, Connor.
My pleasure.
Okey doke. Let's see. Next, we have a continued public hearing on a 40,500 square foot building at 165 Chief Justice Cushing Highway for NOI 25-4 and stormwater permit 2502. That hearing is now resumed. I know we conducted a site visit, some of us, and Charlotte, is there anyone from the applicant team available, or would you like to give us an update?
Sure, yeah, so we have Tom McNulty, the applicant and owner, Hingham Lumber, and Cameron Gray. I think Cameron, you're from Bay Colony Engineering Group. Oh, hi, Bill.
Yeah, that's correct.
Oh, sorry. So yeah, Cameron Gray and I'm Bill. I'm so sorry. I'm forgetting your last name.
That's all right, Bill Buckley.
Thank you, Bill. Oh,
Great.
someone
So,
else is raising their hand. I apologize. It's a list of numbers, but I assume they might be here for this hearing. I don't know, Tom, if this.
Oh, no, still there.
Oh, there you are, Jeff.
I don't know why I show up as numbers. Sometimes that might be beneficial, but anyway. Jeff DeLisi, I'm here obviously with Tom McNulty, the owner of Hingham Lumber. Cameron Gray and Bill Buckley from Bay Colony Group, our engineers. Just a brief overview. This project concerns a proposed building, which is going to be located behind the existing lumber building at the property. The project was designed to respect the 50-foot no disturbance buffer strip, and we are not seeking any variances. As Charlotte indicated, since the last meeting, there was a site visit. I felt the site visit was informative for me, and I'm hoping it was also for the board. And really the takeaway from the last meeting was the discussion concerning efforts to try and bring our activities outside of the 100-foot buffer strip. And we've been able to do that in a portion of the area. We did address at the site visit that due to safety issues and practical issues concerning the site, we're unable to propose moving the building from its current proposed location, but I'll let Cameron and or Bill take it from here, show the commission what we've done since our last meeting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Again, for the record, my name's Cameron Gray and I'm with Bay Colony Group. If I could share my screen, I got some plans that we're able to share at the site walk. So I'll start with the turning radius plan. So there have been discussions about looking at the site design in order to reduce the amount of work taking place within the 100-foot buffer zone. So we figured a good place to start was we're going to see all the traffic going around the site and any areas we may be able to reduce the amount of work happening in there. So if in this area up here, we had previously proposed as pavement, and you can see we have no traffic going in this area. So we're able to revise the site plan, pulling back the limit of work and keeping everything out of the buffer zone. So that'll include the pavement, the retaining wall, and any other work in that area. As for elsewhere on the site, reducing the amount within the 100-foot buffer zone, this area is being utilized for the trucks to be able to back into the bays. And then this area down here, we're utilizing again for the delivery trucks to have access around the building, as well as emergency personnel to have access around the building. I'll put up the rendering so you can see a little bit better the existing conditions here in this area. So by pulling back that limit of work, we've removed approximately 3,100 square feet of impervious from the buffer zone. And we saved roughly 16 trees in that area. So I'll pivot to the next comment that I thought was another big sticking point from the last meeting was the amount of trees within the buffer zone. So we had previously shown trees 12 inches and above. We have gone back out again and had the surveyors locate trees 4 inches and above within the buffer zone. So I went through and counted them all. I believe it was a comment from Charlotte that she would like to see it included in a zoning table or a table of any sort. So I included that. We're removing roughly 89 trees from the buffer zone. So we're proposing to replant those trees one for one. I'm showing plantings here in this area. So it's roughly 82 trees here and then plantings as well down here. So with this site, we're utilizing as much area as we can. And this area is currently that cleared area that the commission will remember we kind of walked down into. So rather than cutting down trees to plant trees, we thought it was beneficial to plant trees where it's currently bare. I worked with Brad and he's given me a list of trees that we'll be proposing to plant in that area. It's showing 9 different trees with they're varying in height from 6 to 8 feet. And then I think the last thing I wanted to touch on was, I believe it was a comment from Commissioner Bell regarding the snow storage. I don't show it on this plan, but it'll be in our next revised plan set. I had originally showed a snow storage area up here. So I've since eliminated that snow storage area. And all snow storage for this project will take place on proposed pavement. So that way any snow melt will go into the proposed drainage system where it'll be treated and will not be discharging directly to the wetlands. And then I think other than that, we've received the comments from Charlotte as well as the town's consultant and the planning board and the conservation commission. We've worked through all those comments and we plan on submitting a revised plan set as well as a narrative addressing all those comments. Either it'll most likely be Monday. And I think that touches on the main points from the last meeting. I'm not sure, Jeff, if you had anything else to add.
That's on my list. Thank you.
Great. Mr. McNulty, was there anything else? So it looks like, I mean, I don't, well, Commissioner Bell, do you have any questions, comments?
I think the only question I have is, have we received the report of the site investigation for the bald area that has the half dozen monitoring wells?
So we haven't submitted that report to you. That's typically something that's a private report that's prepared in connection with a property transfer. The report does in fact conclude that there's no reportable issues on the property. And I think that's probably the main thing, but there's a lot of data in there. It's around 100 pages, you know, and we prefer kind of consistent with commercial issues to kind of keep that private. And that's pretty much it. We didn't provide it because there's nothing reportable.
So we're not interested in the data per se. We want to know the rationale for why this was done.
Well, anytime you have,
and I think that the executive summary from the report would be sufficient to assure us that indeed there is no problem.
So typically, not typically, there's not a commercial transaction, and we view this as a commercial transaction because it's acquiring property for commercial purposes, that we that I've ever been involved in where we have not done a study to make sure that there are no issues. So that was the rationale for it. I'll discuss with my client the executive summary comment, Tom.
I hate to have this lingering thing. Obviously, there were some monitoring wells put in. They're new.
Yep.
They look brand new. It does beg the question of why. Why
Yep.
there? Why not everywhere? You know, there's a specific site there with monitoring wells, and it could impact your activities in that area could impact something that is being withheld from us. That's not a good situation.
Like I indicated, Tom, we'll address that issue. I'll talk offline with Mr. McNulty about that.
Okay.
Commissioner Berrigan?
No questions or comments right now.
Commissioner McIntyre?
Yeah, I mean, just regarding the wells, I mean, I think if there was a reportable condition, then that would have been reported, that would have been public information, would have required reporting. So I think if we can get the executive summary, that would be great. But my other comment was just regarding the safety and the turning radius and the snow melt. I'm confused how there's room to allow piling of snow if you still need all that area for safety. So there was a comment about piling the snow to melt on pavement. Could you elaborate on that? I mean, if there's room enough to pile snow, assuming there's still deliveries, wouldn't that be excess pavement?
We've moved everything outside the 100-foot buffer.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be piling snow in this area, and we pulled everything in this area out of the 100-foot buffer zone. So, I mean, this area will be utilized. And it can be used for outside storage, but are going to use it for snow storage also. But again, I just want to point out, we pulled this area back. So that way it's no longer within that buffer zone. And then I believe I show another area down here. And also same thing again, outside the buffer zone.
Any follow-up, Chris?
No.
Okay. So, I mean, the only comment I would have is sort of a greedy one for the town is, you know, the balance of the property that is being acquired. Love to see that be put into, you know, some sort of conservation, but that's just me, you know, speaking my wish list. But other than that, I mean, I appreciate the moving that wall outside of the 100-foot. Regardless, I mean, we do have, even if that wall is outside of the 100-foot, there is a stormwater permit here. So, you know, jurisdiction, you know, and consideration of the balance of the property remains. But I appreciate the effort, and I found the site visit to be informative as well. Charlotte, was there anything else that we should, it sounds like we're obviously continuing this. We're getting a revised plan. We're gonna, you know, the applicant's gonna go back and powwow about whether, you know, the executive summary and satisfy Commissioner Bell and Commissioner McIntyre's concerns with the wells that were dug. And so, Charlotte, is there anything else that we should be considering for this hearing, or do we want to just, you know, appreciate everybody's time and continue it until we can get, you know, the final information for us to, you know, contemplate votes?
Yeah, sure. Just two things, and then first, just had a question for the commissioners who attended the site visit. Other than clarifying the either executive summary or something in documentation about, no bad things obviously being found on the site. Did any of the commissioners who attended the site visit have any other questions that or things that they would wish to see on the plans or clarified on the plans so that Cameron, Bill, and Tom and Jeff can all go back and revise everything? Is there anything else that you guys need to see based on what you saw out on the site?
This is Valerio. Just quickly, I do recall in the existing building at the back, I think they're either loading bays or something, but those are coming out or getting filled or something like that. Is that right?
Mr. Chair, sorry,
Yes.
was that to me or is that to the?
No, that was to Cameron and Bill.
It is being filled.
Is okay, and so is that reflected on that's not reflected here, but that'll be reflected on the updated plans?
Yes.
Okay.
And we will get you something responsive to the subsurface report that was done.
Oh, great. Thank you.
You're welcome.
You don't want to pique the geologist's interest and you leave that itch unscratched.
Yeah.
And I'm saying that sincerely. I'm not trying to make light of it. So
There's nothing there. It's not our property, and that's really what's going through my mind. So, but I'll provide it to you.
and then the update that those loading bays that will be reflected. I don't really have anything else. Is that Commissioner Bell? Did you have anything else that we weren't able to deliberate or ask too many pointed questions at the site visit? Because so did you have anything else that you want to bring up?
No, I think I agree with you with most of the commissioners here, if not all of them, that moving the wall outside of the 100 was meritorious, and I understand the snow storage issue. I think, well, it's outside. First of all, it's outside of the 100-foot buffer, and when it's snowing out there, you're going to lose a little bit of outside storage space. But I think that in general, the plan looks acceptable to me.
And Commissioner McIntyre, you were at the site visit also. Did you have anything else?
No, I just think there was some kind of not discussion, but just commentary about the remainder of the property, and it'd be great. Not related to this particular project, but it would be great if there could be something established to set up a meeting, maybe with Cohasset Conservation Group, to perhaps set some of the remainder of the property that's being acquired for conservation, because looks like to be primarily wetlands. So that'd be great. Let's get a comment.
Thanks, Chris. Charlotte, was there something else also?
Yeah, and I'm just gonna hopefully tie up some loose ends. So as the commission remembers, we had received an unusual comment from DEP, not submitted during the ANRAD phase, but during the NOI phase, about the question of some wetlands that were potentially in an area that was marked as DEP altered wetlands through a series of aerial surveys that were done between the 90s and early 2000s. In visiting the site, speaking to Mr. Holmes, who explained, to the commissioners at the site that, there's no sign from his professional view of, wetlands being there. I did also, just to kind of make sure, tie up any loose ends, I looked through the town records to see if there were any previous delineation surveys other than prior to the 2001 ANRAD that was submitted before Hingham Lumber was constructed. And I did find a wetlands plan from I think it was 1995, from the Cohasset Heights landfill that was showing a wetlands map of the CJC area. In reviewing that map, I can pull it up if the commissioners want to look at it, but hopefully you had a chance to look at it. In reviewing that map, it does not appear that there were any wetlands delineated in the area that DEP had kind of flagged in their GIS layer. So I think it lines up obviously with everything that we've seen on site with Mr. Holmes's professional wetlands assessment that there were no wetlands in the area. And then just that plan in general did not show wetlands in the area. I did send it to Cam, to Bill and Brad and Jeff and the team, and it seems like we're all in agreement about that. So just wanted to update the commission that I think we can safely say in regards to DEP's comment that it's in our best knowledge with the information that we found and we've been given that there are no wetlands in that area as shown on Mass Mapper.
Thank you for clearing that up, Charlotte. Excuse me. Excuse me. Okay, well, with that, I continue the matter. When is the next appropriate date, Mr. DeLisi or Ms. Bechtel?
We would be happy to take the next available date, which I think you guys meet maybe 3 weeks from now, Charlotte. Am I right with that?
2 weeks.
Two, and then, yeah, just a quick question, I guess, Cam and Bill, is with keeping in mind, we require documents a week in advance. Is that enough time for you guys to put everything together from, you know, my comments, planning boards, peer review comments, all the stuff? Is that enough time for you guys? And then Jeff, is that enough time for you to clarify the monitoring well item?
It's enough for me.
Enough? Okay.
Yeah, that gives us plenty of time.
It's
Okay,
basically a
so
week from-
March
a week from
20th.
now.
Yeah, okay, so March 20th would be our next meeting, and then documents would be submitted a week in advance on, what is that, the 13th, 14th, I can't count, yeah. Thursday before.
All right, great. Well, this matter is continued until March 20th. Thank you all very much for your time.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Have a great night.
Have a good night, thank you.
Right.
Right.
Hold on, let's see here.
Awesome.
Wow. Even with an extended discussion, I think all of our public hearings are complete for tonight. Thank you all. Charlotte, do you have any agent updates?
I have only one, and I took everything off the list to give this a nice and early meeting. I will be revising the wetland regs this weekend. I don't care how long it takes. I'm doing it this weekend. I've just called my parents, started a 5-minute break. I said, I can't babysit the dog this weekend. I am shutting myself in and I am fixing this. So, if I text or call you guys on weekends, I will try my best to obviously not do that because I like to be professional, but just know that this is what I will be doing this weekend. I've been waiting to do this for 2+ years. I have tried to attack it in small pieces. I've just never been given the time in the office at all. So I need quiet, and I don't care if I don't get paid to do the overtime. I want this done. And so with that being said, we will need to revise our regs. The rough schedule would be, I will meet with town council. We will look at the edits. We'll prepare everything. I will send you guys a draft and maybe give you guys, like, if that's okay with you guys, I'll give you guys maybe like, I don't know, a month, a few weeks, whatever you guys want. We'll edit everything. I'll send it to town council. I'll finalize it. I will advertise whatever meeting that ends up being to vote on the regs. We do not need to go to town meeting to update our wetland regulations. We just have to properly advertise it. And then after that is done, we need to update our bylaw, and that will have to go to town meeting. So it won't be able to make it for our May town meeting, but we could probably do special town meeting if we can kickstart this now. I've been told enough. I need to update my regs, and I'm done. So I'm doing it. So I guess to commissioners, thoughts on if I can get it all done this weekend, how much time would you guys like or need to look at my edits and either set up a one-on-one meeting with me, go through your thoughts? Like, what are you guys thinking of what you guys would want to do for this?
Tom?
2 weeks.
2 weeks? Okay.
Kathy?
Okay, 2 weeks.
Chris, does that sound good to you?
Oh,
You're
Chris.
muted, but I think you said yes.
Yeah, he's not.
Yeah, 2 weeks sounds good to me. I really appreciate it. What kind of dog is it that you usually babysit? You want to bring him over here?
He's a big white fluffy Samoyed. She's technically, well, She's half my dog, half my parents' dog, but since I can't take care
Drop
of
her
her.
at 140 Pond. I'll take care of her.
Yeah, there you go. She's a handful. But yeah, I guess, would you guys also like the opportunity to just set up one-on-one Zoom meetings? I don't think that would be an issue with open meeting law at all. To, you know, if you guys wanted to send me your comments, then we can go over it. Do you guys want me to set up meetings or just leave that optional for you guys and just give you guys two?
Maybe expedite it at a 2-on-1. I think as long as we're no more than 2.
That was the advice we were given by council when I first started. Yeah, like even
Yeah.
though 2 is nowhere near close to a quorum, definitely no more than 2 in the same meeting.
Yeah, might speed things along. I appreciate that you're going to fix this glaring hole in our
Even if we can't,
regulations.
yeah. Even if we can't add everything, I will definitely make sure that the edits I make will be the things that we need now. And then
Yeah.
we will have a PDF and a Word document for the future, so we can revise the regs whenever we want. But
Yeah.
right now, it's a scanned PDF. It has taken me a very long time to make it a Word file. So yeah, we will have that moving forward.
Yeah,
That sounds great. Yeah, I mean, just let's be mindful of open meeting law. Don't just, you know, if you meet with, you know, Tom and Kathy, don't just take their information and then tell it to Chris and myself. And then, you know, we can't just circumvent the open meeting law by having a go-between, but you certainly can take in all of our information, you know, separately. So just be mindful. But yeah, that sounds great. I really
know that
appreciate
would
the
kind
work,
of
but I
leave
wasn't kidding about the
Steve-
dog sitting either.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I know that would kind of leave Steve out of the equation because he is, he's our newest commissioner, but he is on vacation until the end of March. So maybe like by the time you guys gotten a chance to look at it, I mean, Steve might have email access and it'll definitely take town council some time to look at it. So Steve would definitely have time in that window to still look at it, even if we're outside that 2-week time frame.
Yeah, let's not bring it to a vote until
Yeah.
Steve's had an opportunity
Yeah.
to review it. So,
Yeah, that's
whatever-
fair.
However that works, you know. I'll
Steve,
leave that to you.
as you guys saw, did quite a bit of research on another project. So Steve definitely, I think, will be a great contributor if, you know, he's given the time. So I'll definitely allow that to, you know, maybe get you guys to look at it first. Make sure Steve is on the emails and I'll let Steve know, obviously, whenever I'm sending it to council or when I plan to send it to council, make sure Steve gets that time and make sure council's okay with everything. And council will definitely be on the meeting where we're going to review and vote on it. But yeah, I mean, there's definitely a billion changes I would like to make, but for now, I am prioritizing the ones that we obviously desperately need ASAP and some stuff that should even go into our bylaw at the next town meeting.
Thanks, Charlotte.
She's the
So
best.
those,
Thank
sorry,
you.
go ahead, Kathy.
Yeah, I've
Isn't
been
she the
told by
best?
too many lawyers
She is
that I need
awesome.
to
You're the
update my
best, yeah.
regs. I don't like it.
Charlotte.
That, and then, so those were agent, do we have any, you know, separately thought of 48 hours?
That actually was the 48-hour issue. I
Okay.
didn't put any other updates on this call to make it nice and sweet for you, short and sweet for you guys.
Perfect.
Awesome, guys. Well, I really appreciate everybody's time tonight. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
motion to adjourn.
Voice vote? All those in favor?
Aye.
No opposed? That passes unanimously. The Conservation Commission hearing for March 6, 2025 is now closed.
Awesome.
you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank
Have a
you all.
wonderful
Good night.
weekend.
Have a great
Charlotte,
night all.
everyone.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.